Hello! Today we're doing a review. I'm looking at the TBS Mambo, which is the radio from TBS that uses the sort of tracer module inside. Great big thanks to my friend and patron Gaff here, who runs the UK FPV shop Your FPV. Don't forget to check it out if you're in the UK. Just to explain, this is the first bit of filming I've done since my knee operation because I haven't been able to sit down and crunch my knee up. But there's going to be videos coming out where I did the intros beforehand and then I'm doing the follow-ups after, so it's all going to look a bit weird and out of context. But ignore that. This is, I've kind of jumped onto this one because I'm going to do sort of a first look at it because I still can't sort of wander out and fly it much. But I wanted to see what it was like in terms of the feel, how it works, because it runs something called FreedomTX instead of OpenTX, which is a fork. So it's very similar but slightly different, and exactly what you can do with it, and let's have a close-up and see what it's like. So let's get it out of here first. First up, in the box, you get this piece of cardboard. It's got some QR codes for the manual and the TBS Agent X, which you use to update things with. You've got a couple of envelopes. One says spring set, another contains an Allen key and 4 throttle limitation screws, and then you've got the actual radio in here. And I was having a word with Gaff about this. First thing I sort of thought, oh, that's weird, is it's got no antenna coming out. And he mentioned that the other thing was weird. He kept trying to pick it up from the back, and of course it's got no handle. So it's very different. I've heard some people talk about the gimbals. The first impression for me, feeling them, is like, this feels really nice. But other people have said they're not. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe they had a bad one or something, but to me that feels like a really nice gimbal. Several things a little bit different. I haven't had a TBS radio before. You've got some very nice potentiometers with a very definite midpoint there. You've got 3 position switches, 4 of them across here. And then you've got these weird things. You've got this momentary switch, but it's kind of a button. And on this one, which is normally used for arming, it's again a button that pushes in and out, which is all very weird. Before I go into more detail with this radio, we'll go up close about it. The other thing I got with it, which I'm going to do in a separate video, is this. This is a TBS Tracer 69, which is a TBS VTX and a tracer receiver built in one board. So obviously I'm going to put that on a quad, but this video is going to focus how this works and how it's different and stuff like that. And then I'll come to this another video and get it installed and we'll fly the two together. Anyway, let's go into close-up and we'll have a really good look at this, and I'll put some batteries in it and we can turn it on and see how it works. Okay, the Mambo up close. First thing we'll do is just take these little stickies off. You don't need those. The second thing I'm going to do is add some batteries. This takes 2 18650s. One little thing to note is you don't want the ones with the little battery terminals sticking out. You want the sort of flat ones, which are more the norm. So let me pop those in and we'll see what happens. Batteries installed, quite a tight fit, so let's turn this on. It's got the normal hold things down for a few seconds and wait till it starts.
Welcome to Mambo.
And it says that.
Throttle warning.
So FreedomTX is a fork of OpenTX, so very similar but just made for TBS's own little things there. So everything will be very familiar to anybody used to OpenTX. All the normal page stuff is there, and if we go into here we see the setups that we can go through. All very, very normal if you've used OpenTX before, so it shouldn't be any hassle to create stuff. I suppose one thing I'm interested about is I go to the, do that again. If we go to the setup, what do we have in terms of, we've got this nice little scroll wheel here. Instead of having an internal module, it just says Crossfire. An external RF, PPM, XJT, DSM, CRSF, multi. So nothing's missing. I mean, you can run R9 in this if you want to, or the multi-protocol module, or CRSF, so you can run Crossfire on it as well as having tracer internally. So as far as controls go, reasonably nice clear screen, a nice sort of very bluish on black. As mentioned, you've got this scroll wheel to do things. You've got the 3 buttons there. The gimbals. The other set of gimbal screws make things a little bit lighter or softer. There's also detailed instructions from TBS about how to open this up, how to change the strength of the throttle ratchet, if you want to change it to mode 1, that sort of thing. That's all included. And I was saying here, you've got 3 position switches for these 4. You've got potentiometers here with a nice sort of clunk when it goes in the middle. Normal trim tabs, not used much in
Trim center.
quad flying, but good for other stuff. And you've got these ones. Still not sure what I think about these. I mean, I like the idea because a few times, because I generally have arm on this normal switch and then I have air mode on off here. So when I come to land, I flick air mode to off, and just occasionally I've hit the wrong switch and hit disarm. So I like the idea of that switch being very sort of deliberate. The only thing it's not is a nice sort of clicky switch. It just sort of goes in and sort of stays in. I'd really like a click, but that's a minor thing, and that one's fine as a momentary. So that's that bit. On the back, as mentioned, we've got the 18650s there, quite tight fit. And we've got the full size JR module bay there. You'll notice there's nowhere to actually put a memory card, but there is a memory card in there because it keeps chatting to me, which is interesting. So there's a pre-made memory card that you can obviously get at through the TBS Agent X app, which can update this and do stuff with crossfire and trace and everything else. So that's probably the first thing to do. I mean, what version of this have we got? That's the wrong thing to press. It says we are on version TBS 129. So I guess the thing there is to go ahead and pop it into the computer and see if it needs to be updated. Let's do that bit next. We'll be using the included USB-C. You can also charge through that at 1 watt, so you never have to take the batteries out. There's also an audio cable you can plug into there, so you can put headphones in if you want to. Anyway, let's see if this needs to be updated.
So here we are in TBS Agent X, and if you've got a Crossfire system, you'll probably be quite familiar with this, and there's my Crossfire Micro TX module that I've updated. Having plugged in the radio, these extra things appear. Now, I have to say I've already done this, and I did a screen recording, and what was happening is my microphone played up and that completely screwed up my screen recording. So I'll have to show you it from this point of view. First off, when you plug the Mambo in via the USB, you get extra options than you would on a normal radio. So we get the normal joystick or storage, but we also get USB charging and USB agent. And if we say USB agent, we should hopefully find, yep, that we've got these little orange bits that mean, yes, I'm online now. And from here, basically, we can go in and we can change some settings, like you can do the failsafe and bind, you can change your power all from this app, and you can update the firmware. Now, I've already updated the firmware. I have to say, though, that, and this seems to be just on a Mac, this was tricky. It kept failing. It kept failing when it was trying to restart the device and would just hang there. And in fact, one of the ones I haven't been able to do is the Mambo Wi-Fi. The Mambo has Wi-Fi on board, so we can make it join my home network, or I can run it as a Wi-Fi point and join that network. And if I do that, I can attach to it and I could drop an update file. But what I haven't been able to do is simply say I want to update that firmware. It just hasn't worked for me. I think this is all down to a Mac. I haven't seen anybody complain on the Windows version, so I don't really know what to do about that apart from say, hey, it's not working very well, and hope there's an update soon. But anyway, the rest of it's been updated. The Freedom TX is all up to date. The most important thing for me is to get Tracer up to date, because in the current one there was the thing about making it actually work with the Tracer 69, and I've obviously got the Tracer 69 to work. So yeah, that's that. Not a very good experience for me. I think it's because I'm on a Mac. If you're on Windows and you find TBS Agent dodgy or find it good, please feel free to leave a message in the comments. For anecdotal evidence, me researching this shows that nobody else seems to have this problem except me. So I think it's all down to Mac, but there you go. Anyway, with the radio vaguely updated, aside from the Wi-Fi, but I'm not intending to use that yet, let's get on and do a bit more testing.
So the closest I'm going to get to flying right now will be to connect it up to a SIM. I'm using my SIM because, shameless self-promotion, why wouldn't I? Plug this in, it comes up as a TBS joystick, And all the sticks work good. I had to reassign these. Depending on the sim you have, you might need to do that, you might need to not. But I'd always advise you go in and calibrate as well, because sometimes the way computers look at these sticks, you won't quite get all the resolution until you calibrate it properly the first time. But just the feel of this, I'm quite liking. Some people have mentioned, as I said, that they didn't like the gimbals. Gimbals feel pretty good to me. They're quite... they've got some resistance, certainly. You've got the softer springs if you want them. I like to sort of push against quite a bit of resistance. So these are suiting me. There's also something where you can limit your stick travel, but I can get to the end of these. I think they're not enormous travel. They feel just about right to me. But yeah, everything feels pretty good. It feels pretty natural and normal to use. As I said, I like a bit of friction on a stick to push against. And these give me that. Whether it's too much, I'm not sure. I might alter a bit of stuff. I really don't like it loose. Some people do, not me. But yeah, works good so far. I've got this set up so this button resets it. And should I crash like that, I got the momentary as a flip, which works pretty well. Yeah, happy so far. Want to get on with a regular test. Did notice a few little interesting things as I was going through the setup on this one on various modules, which I want to talk about now. Now, here's a regular radio. This just happens to be my Jumper T12 Pro. And if I want to go and get my models, I just sort of long press enter, and then I can choose what model I want and do that, and I can be up and running. That's not quite the same with Freedom TX, I found out. It's there, it's just kind of like it hasn't quite got the same shortcut and is a little bit different. So if I long press enter, I need to go to model select, and from model select you've got categories here, so you can put your models into different categories. I quite like that. And then you can do stuff here, so if you want to choose one, you just hold it down and you can say select it or whatever. And obviously if you want to then, because what most people do is just create yourself a model, and then you duplicate it from there on, which is exactly what I did with this one. So I checked stuff out. The Recon 3 I had is on Crossfire, and I checked out all the controls in Betaflight. That bound up fine, and that was all happy and good. If you were taking note in this here, you'll notice I added an ELRS model, which I'll select now. Now, if you're wondering, does ELRS work? Well, it certainly talks to the module. I added the ELRS script there, and it connects and talks to the module, not a problem. I mean, it talks CRSF between itself. I just don't have a 2.4 model set up that I can try that with, but that's something to add on to the testing phase. The only problem I found is if I wanted to run R9. If I go back to this jumper to show you the problem, it's hard to tell from here because it just says R9 868, which is what you'd use in the Europe and the UK, and 915 you'd use in the US. If I was to go into the RF power and change my power, it would go all the way up to 1 watt, and it says auto, and that means I'm running flex. So the actual power will change depending what it's needed. And you can tell that if you look in the firmware options. You'll see one of the things we have is Flex R9M. So if I was to take this model and change the external RF to, there it is, R9M, we've got the option of FCC or EU, which is the UK. But the problem here is if I then go down to say RF power, and I go and say I want to go to 1 watt or flex, I can't, because it hasn't got that version of the firmware in there. So if I were to go over to here and look at the firmware options, we have the normal Crossfire, no heli multi-module, and the Lua stuff. We don't have the R9 Flex. If I was running regular OpenTX, I could just go to OpenTX Companion. I could add that to my compile list and put it on there. Because we're on Freedom TX, we don't have that companion. So we're kind of slightly at the mercy about what TBS want to include with that. I mean, we can set a lot of stuff up. We just don't have that flexibility of going back to the companion and doing stuff. And that includes, of course, saving model memories and things from other radios and moving them across. So you lose that bit of ease going from radio to radio. I mean, it's not too bad in my case, because if you bought one of these, you're probably not a fan of R9. But it's kind of like, it's just one of these flexibility options that's missing. As terms of a little nitpick, I have noticed that all the modules that have fit in here just a little bit shaky, and it's not just this R9. If I move over to this Crossfire module and pop that in, it's still, there's a bit of movement in there that you probably wouldn't want. I mean, it's not going anywhere and the connection's fine, it just doesn't fit in as nicely as you'd like it to. Ergonomically, it's got some real nice touches that just little things that make it quite nice. If I look at sort of a regular radio, I'll take this jump again and look at the back. It's got these little sort of plastic bits where kind of your fingers might cut round. In the trainers, you've got the same sort of raised plastic bits to hang on to. Not too bad. On the Mambo, you've got these kind of, they're not quite rubberized, but they're not plastic either. They're just stand out a little bit more. They make it just a little bit easier to grab hold of. Now, whether you're thumbing or you're a pincher, there's always something to go around there, and that feels quite sturdy. Obviously, you've got the neck strap, should you want that for extra support, but I've certainly haven't felt like this is ever going to drop out of my hands. That extra little knobbly bit there really does make a difference. So yeah, nice little touch.
Another nice little touch is if you plug in the USB cable when the radio is off, it comes on with a little charge indication. It tells you where it is and a battery indicator, which is much nicer than just a light that goes on or off.
Well, that's my quick first look of the TBS Mambo, and I like it so far. I like the fact that it sort of comes out of the box, it's ready to go, there's no messing about with an SD card and things, it's just a case of configuring stuff up and going. Obviously, it's going to suit people that have a tracer on their system and are sort of into the TBS infrastructure, and of course you can easily very much fit in a Crossfire and go with that, so that's nice. Ergonomically, I really like it. I like the gimbals, I like the little nubbin at the back, I like the scroll wheel, everything's sort of spaced out quite nicely, that's nice. A couple of little bits of weirdness with the way you update it, and I certainly had some problems with my Mac using the TBS Agent X software. And of course there's some things missing from OpenTX, and there's some things a little bit different. If you've been used to a regular OpenTX radio, then Freedom TX is a little bit different. But certainly an interesting prospect so far. So next time I'm going to be installing the TBS Tracer 69, hopefully getting to fly that, leg and weather permitting. And because I've been messing around with stuff here, I'll also be taking out something that I can fly on Crossfire with the radio, and I want to know if ELRS works with the Mambo as well, so that'd be interesting to test. Obviously there's a couple of bits to do beforehand, like I need to install some stuff and get going, but hopefully shouldn't be too long. In the meantime, this was again kindly supplied by my friend Gaff from Your FPV. Don't forget to check out his shop online if you're in the UK, links down below, and I'll catch you next video. Hope that's helpful for now. Bye.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.